All right, Gator fans, today I am joined by 2008 national champion and former NFL kicker Caleb Sturgis. Caleb, when you were at UF, special teams were king, right? Urban Meyer thought that it ended and began with how you played on special teams. Talk about what his approach was like to it.
Yeah, he was real involved. He was really hands-on on the special teams, especially when I first got there. And I think by the time he was leaving Florida, he was starting to hand it off to DJ Durkin. But when I was there, it was everything, right? I know Eric's probably told you this. Punters would eat first in line. His biggest thing was always punt, right? He always talked about putting a premium on coverage. The hidden yards that we would always gain there were really big to him. He always found ways to scheme teams to where he could have a ton of free releasers. We just covered really well during his time there. And a lot of that is, again, I think to the time that he specifically put into it. And then I guess him holding, them accountable for the ones they were in charge with.
So special teams are obviously struggling this season. And truly, I guess when we started the Utah game, Florida was struggling kind of in all aspects of the game. And they seem to have really taken a step forward on defense, cleaned things up procedurally on offense. But special teams is still struggling. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. So, I think there's two parts, right? You have your specialists, and kind of how they perform doesn't necessarily equate to how the unit in general. Obviously they can make the unit look a lot better with the way that the specialist performs. So obviously in game one, everything was tough, right? We caught some punts inside the 10. We made errors in personnel. The 8 guys on field goal block, and then the 2 number 3s everybody talks about. The last few games, I haven't noticed as many big gaps there, but obviously you have an older punter who's super talented player that hasn't punted up to his potential, and then anytime you make a kicker switch mid-season, it's a little bit scary there. But obviously Trey came in and hit 3 of the better balls I've seen. In the swamp, obviously they weren't very far out. Distance, everything like that, his rotations pretty special. So I'm hoping that it is getting better, and I think as we get into the grind of the SEC schedule, more will come out on whether that has been fixed.
So, do you think, we talked about how there's multiple aspects to this. Do you think that it's more the pressure, it's more coaching, or it's more player preparation that's causing some of the problems?
Yeah. So going back to the Utah game, it's fun. I had this conversation there. We were golfing the F Club event recently, and what I did appreciate is the fact we put our most dangerous guy back there to catch punts. I think it's been a while at Florida since we've done that, right? So I really appreciated that. Now, when you do that, especially with a younger guy that in high school probably never got caught, right? Anytime he got the ball, he could change the field in an instant and run by everybody. And so, no matter how many times his heels on the 10, he might think, I can take a few more steps back and I'm going to break this thing 90 yards. I'm going to change the game on my own. So, I think you do take that risk when you put a guy like Wilson back there. But yeah, I think when you have a little bit more of a mature player like Pearsall, you know what you're going to get. He's going to catch every ball. He's not going to take that step inside the 10. That's what you're going to get with an older player. I just don't know how many times, right, is he going to truly break a play wide open and change the game. So it really comes down to, in my opinion, of how dangerous do you want to get with your special teams. A team like Alabama, Georgia, where you expect to win on what you do in offense and defense, you probably don't want to take those kind of risks. A team like Florida, right now, maybe you do take a few more of those risks.
So let's talk a little bit about practice time. Have you been out to practice? Have you seen how special teams are run versus maybe the few coaches beforehand?
I haven't seen that. I would be interested now to know, how much time is spent in meetings and then the practice time and things like that. And obviously things have changed a ton since my time. When I first got to Florida, we were kicking off from the 30-yard line. So like kickoff and kickoff return were way bigger back then, in my opinion, because you had very few guys that were putting the ball deep enough in the end zone to not run it out. So that's two more phases that you had to spend a ton more time on.
Yeah.
In the NFL, it's I wouldn't call it quite a third of the amount of time that guys spend on it, but it's pretty close as far as total meeting time and total practice time. When we were there under Meyer, I wouldn't say it was a third, but pretty close. So I would be interested to know, how much is allotted for it, especially in the punt return game.
Let's talk a little bit about the missed field goals. And I don't like to dwell on mistakes by individual players, but obviously kicking is sort of an individual sport within a team sport, right? There's a lot of aspects to it that probably the average fan isn't realizing. The snap can go wrong, the hold can go wrong, the voices can be facing the wrong direction. Like there's just so many aspects leading up that happen prior to the kicker's foot ever hitting it. When you watch the couple missed field goals and missed extra points that Mahalik had this year so far, are you seeing a trend as to what it is? Is it something that happens prior to him even kicking it?
Yeah, so I mean, I watched his kicks, and they were low for sure, right? I think in kicking, right, the protection can make you good, and you can make the protection good. And if either one's a little bit off, that's when things can happen. I think you look at Saturday's game, there was a push, right? I think both balls were probably blocked about 4.5 yards, but if you hit a high ball, it gets over it. So yeah, both balls, if you look, are going right down the middle of the uprights. So I don't think he's striking it extremely poorly. Overall, I think him and Smack both strike really good field goals. They don't get a ton of different rotations and the way they hit the ball. One thing that's interesting to me that a lot of colleges still use is only being at 7 yards on the snap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you'll find an NFL team that's inside of 8 yards on the protection. So you think about it of, that ball is being blocked at 4.5 yards. Is it blocked at 5.5 with the same penetration? I don't know. So it's just one more part of it. Again, I don't think that Mahalik should completely get off with,
Sure.
responsibility, but at the same time too, I think it is a unit in that sense.
I'm pretty sure on that missed extra point, there was actually not enough men on the field, which obviously doesn't help as well.
We had 10 on the block.
I believe so, on the blocked extra point. I have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure that's what I counted. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Tennessee win as a whole. I think fans really have kind of a different energy about this team that has changed so much just over the course of 3 weeks. How big is beating Tennessee at home?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, fortunately, I think when I was there, we always beat them. Game, the great thing about that game too is we play them early, so pretty much every year, neither of us have lost going in. Obviously, we had lost to Utah going into this one, so there's just so much hope at that point of the season. And then whoever loses it, it's you're just starting from way behind, already having a loss in the SEC East. And man, our crowd is so good. So to me, yeah, starting off with such a low against Utah, a lot of things that kind of hurt us last year seem to bleed over into the Utah game. So to be able to completely turn that around in the Tennessee game and really in a dominant fashion in that first half, I think it's put a lot of hope in Gator fans. I was on the sideline for a lot of the game. I mean, it was special. It felt a lot like some of the really good times that in the past at the Swamp.
What do you think of Coach Napier in general? Have you gotten to listen to him speak or spend any time with him?
I mean, I've listened to him speak quite a few times. I enjoy his press conferences. Some of the alumni things. Haven't spent too much time one-on-one with him, but I really appreciate what he's trying to build. I think he gets it of just what it's going to take in college football now, like what you have to put in, what you need to win, and he's going to do it. And I don't know if again, I'm not a big X's and O's person on offense, so I know people complain about his play calling, things like that. And to me, that can be fixed. It's the big picture, and that's one thing that I think some of the coaches more recently have struggled with, is seeing the big picture. I think he gets it. He's doing everything he can to get talent, which is my biggest thing. If you have good players, you're going to give yourself a chance. He's doing that and doing everything on the outside to make sure we can get good players.
All right, before we let you out of here, I have to ask you, tell me what you thought of Swamp Kings.
I liked it. It was funny. Coming in with Urban Meyer was a legend already at the time. Um, he's a very stern guy. I was 18 years old. I was pretty afraid of him, so it made me like him more, which
Yeah.
was funny after watching it. You got to relive a lot of great moments. I learned a lot about the 05, 06,
Mhm.
07 teams that I was not a part of, so that was really cool. I like the fact that they showed some of the mat drill things that I didn't think that they would show. I thought that was great. Obviously you can take a negative outlook on it and put a lot more of that in it, and maybe that makes it more intriguing for people outside the program. But I think everybody's heard those stories. So overall, I thought it was really well done. It was fun to reminisce, text a lot of old guys you played with, and relive some of those moments.
There's a lot more hair on a lot of guys in those videos than there are now, huh?
Yeah. It's funny. You look at you grow up with guys, and you're like, we didn't get that much older, and then you look back at the videos, like, man, time's passed.
Yep, time has passed. I don't mean not me. I've stayed the same age, but all of
Exactly.
you have gotten old for sure. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I'm sure I will see you on game day someday very soon. Have a wonderful day.
That was good. Thank you so much for having me, Allie.
Really appreciate Caleb Sturgis for joining us today. I always love to get former player perspectives, and somebody that has been so dialed into our special teams for so long is really valuable. And don't forget, tonight, join us. We will be live to preview the Charlotte game, but it's going to be at 7:30. We usually go at 8. Tonight, it's going to be at 7:30, so come hang out with me. Go Gators.